everyone. How you doing?
Trev, just to sort of kick things off here, what was it like for you, who had been waiting for an opportunity to just be back behind a bench, running a bench?
Different for me. It's never the way you envision getting back behind the bench, or not the way I envisioned it. When I came here, there's reasons I came to the team, and obviously where the team was at excited me. But am I lying that it didn't? I'm a head coach by nature, so that part I love that part of the job, but it's not the way I envisioned getting the job.
You talk about joining the team. What was the appeal, and then how did being at the helm of that excite you?
Yeah, again, I go back to that time of the year. It's very chaotic whenever something like that happens, and you take over a team in mid-season toward the end of the season. And I don't think when you're preparing to be a head coach or you're taking over a team for the first time, it's usually in the off-season, and you're doing a lot of work gearing up for training camp. This was more of a 24-hour, 12-hour period of preparing to get the team back on track, I guess, sort of say, or start to install things that I believe in areas that we needed to improve in. But to be behind the bench again was nice.
You've worked with young players before in your career.
Right.
What was it like, teaching and working with these young players that you have here, and what did you see in that short time that you were head coach?
Learned a lot from being the head coach with our group. I've had a long history of working with young players. We've got a lot of great young talent on our group that I believe is on the cusp of hopefully doing great things. Not just making the playoffs, but the ultimate goal is to win a Stanley Cup. And you've seen it over time with young players where there is some setbacks. There's some learning curves. There's some tough lessons to learn along the way. And the team had a good season last year. They won a playoff round, and this season didn't go the way as planned. And the important part now is to really analyze why. Learn lessons from it, and come into camp next year really hungry and eager to get back to work and learn from this season.
You've talked about being a head coach by nature. I mean, is this if you had your talk with Tom already, how did that go? And do you just reveal some details about that?
Yeah, Fitz and I have talked briefly. We'll talk more in the upcoming weeks. Do I want to be the head coach of the team? 100%. There's a lot of reasons why. One of them being the team is good and I want to win. There's certain parts of coaching that I believe in. Collaboration is a big part of it, and I know when you talk about collaboration, that's seeing eye to eye with people throughout your organization. I think Fitz and I see the game very similar. I like what they're trying to do with the group and where they want to go. But it's also collaborating throughout your organization, whether it's analytics, athletic training, and I think that's a huge part of winning. Communication is a big part of what I believe in is coaching, and having accountability. And I think these are all things that go into winning organizations. And but Fitz and I will talk more over the upcoming weeks, and we'll see where it ends up.
If it doesn't end up in that direction, is this a place that you want to return to as an assistant role? Or?
I haven't even looked past us getting through the year-end meetings. Those are questions that I don't really even haven't thought about, and I hope I don't have to think about. I want to be the head coach of the New Jersey Devils, and we'll see where that goes.
Travis, you talked about instilling systems when you took over as the head coach. Where did you see the biggest growth out of your team?
Well, I'd like, it's such a short time. When you take over a team with 21 games left, and it was a very emotional time. Not only is there the coach that a lot of them have had for a long time, not here anymore. There's a trade deadline. And then there's the emotions that go into, battling for a playoff spot, and then not being in a playoff spot. Also trying to install my beliefs in how you win, not just today, but long term. And there's certain areas that I thought details in our game improved. I like teams that are hard to play against, and that's an area that I think we can improve on. And when I say hard to play against, I'm not talking about the fighting, the running over people. I mean, that's all part of hockey. But really, the mindset of your group and what it takes to win, being tenacious on the puck, being committed to certain structures in your game that go into winning. When you watch championship teams, they don't just score goals. They defend as well, and they're committed to hard areas of the rink. They get to puck battles quickly. They defend their net hard. And these are all things that I've tried to, in a short period of time, without a lot of practice time, install. And I think we took steps in those areas. Would I have liked us to won a few more games? I would have. I think we lost 8 games by a goal, taking away the empty netters. And a goal here or there would have helped. Obviously, injuries played a part of our season, which you never want to use as an excuse. I talked a lot about the maturity of our group and the youth within it, and that's part of the NHL. There's a lot of young teams that need to grow into winning teams, and you can see it. Every team that wins a cup at some point was probably a young team that couldn't find a way to win, and we're at that stage now where we've got to continue to push. And really, what excites me about the group is I've seen it now for 20 games. I think I have a real strong understanding of where it is. A big part of my coaching is building relationships. When you talk about accountability, that's really being there for each other every day and dependable that you're going to do the right thing to win. And as a coach, to have accountability in your room, I believe you have to have open dialogue, open communication, trust, build a relationship, and not only do the players then accept accountability, they want it, and they understand it when players are held accountable.
You've always been transparent about ways you've grown throughout your coaching career.
Yeah.
What's the biggest lesson you've taken from this season?
I don't know. I mean, you're always taking lessons. For me, as soon as I was behind the bench again, I could tell that I was a lot better coach. I mean, it's just over time, stepping away from the game, analyzing. I'm a big believer in knowledge, gaining knowledge, studying the game. I've changed a few of the things that I believed in before as a coach. Confidence is another area that you improve the more you do things. But being here now for 20 games with the group, it gives me a lot of enthusiasm going forward with the team, because I think, they're very good hockey players. There's a lot of good young players here in the organization. I believe the organization as a whole is committed, and I'm not just talking the players, but obviously management, ownership, committed to being a winning team. And that means a lot. It means a lot to a coach that the team is committed to doing the right things to win. And sometimes, that's not the popular choice all the time. The popular choice isn't always the best choice, and our team's committed to doing that. So it's an exciting group, and I think the future is extremely bright. And for me as a coach, I want to win. Like, at the end of the day, I want to win, and I think the Devils have a chance to do that.
Travis, I guess about a week and a half after you taking over, I did ask you what you felt the identity of the team was.
Right.
Now that the season has concluded, do you feel the team established some sort of identity that you appreciated, or is it tough to tell because of the injuries and such?
I think we've started to talk about the identity that we want to have. And did we take steps? Maybe. At times. Are we there yet? By no means. There's a long way to go in developing that identity. Obviously, having your whole team, the style of play that you want to play. Hey, we're an offensive team. We've got offensive players, and we're going to create scoring chances. But there's other areas that go into winning. And But I think we've taken a step, and for me, that's part of the summer. That's part of communicating with your group over the summer of what expectations are, what we want to see out of our players when they come back to training camp, not only physically but mentally. I think conditioning is an area that a lot of teams can improve on. Are you middle of the road in the NHL in your conditioning level? Or because if you are, it's not good enough for me. I want players that are extremely well conditioned. I believe that the game is played so fast right now that, and it's physical. You get into playoffs, you've got to be a well conditioned athlete, and there's no excuse not to be. And for me as a coach, I'm going to push our players to be the best they can be individually, to be the best you can be collectively. And effort is something that isn't hard to give, and effort doesn't just start at training camp. For me, effort starts, in 2 weeks when you take a little break and then you get back to work, and you're ultra committed to being that best version that you can be to come back and help the team win. And that's what it takes to win. It's hard to win in the league. Like, there's a lot of good teams, and you need to be your best all the time. And it's not just coming to training camp, it's every day. It's being a great pro. It's coming to practice and understanding that there's purpose to practice. You only get so much practice time, and you can't waste it. Every drill that we do in practice, there's a purpose behind it. There's a detail within the drill that needs to be performed. And, that's part of that maturing process that I'm talking about. You see younger players that, sometimes they just kind of practice. And then you see older players that they understand that, hey, we're working on taking time and space away here, and this is going to translate to the game. And if you don't do it in practice, you can't do it in the game. And I'm a stickler when it comes to details in practice, pace of play in practice, teaching before practice so they understand that. And that all goes into winning. And at the end of the day, we're all responsible to helping our team win, everyone within the whole organization. And it's not just coaches, it's not just players, it's everyone. And that's where that collaboration comes in, where everyone believes they're a real part of the team. And they're part of the success, and they're part of the failure, too. And, I think if you have that type of attitude, your team can only ascend.
And just as a quick follow to that, the players were saying all the right things yesterday, in the fact that, it's a lesson learned this season after what we did the previous season. I would imagine it is frustrating, though, for some of these veterans, like, Heischer, haven't really experienced the playoffs as much as he would want, Jesper Bratt. What do you want to see from these players in the offseason? What do they need to do to really come in and hitting the ground running in training camp?
Well, I think it's different for every player. I believe in accountability, but there's certain standards that every player has to be held to. But how you treat and how every player prepares is going to be a little different from where they're at in their development, for starters. And you talk about it as we have veteran guys that have been around. I look at it almost the opposite direction. We still have a lot of young players that have, like Nico's a young captain in the league. He's 25. Bratter's still a young guy. I think Nico's just scratching the surface of where he's going to be and where he's going to end up. I think he's a great player on the ice. I think his leadership skills are just going to continue to rise, and that comes just from being in the league. That comes from being confident in yourself as a captain. I was lucky to coach the Sedins at the end of their career, and quiet leaders, not overly talkative, not loud and boisterous. Some captains are loud, some aren't. But the respect that they had in the room was amazing. And I think Nico has the ability to get to that stature. But it takes time, and it doesn't happen overnight. And sometimes you have to lose and have hard seasons to really learn from it. And I talk about self-evaluation a lot and being able to evaluate yourself. And that is not just the guys at the bottom of the lineup. That is everyone. That is everyone from Nico to Jack to Dougie to Timo to myself. And that's how you get better. That's the only way to improve, is to be able to self-evaluate and be really brutally honest. And as coaches, we will help with that process. Even coach to coach, I believe in having open dialogue and being able to talk to each other as far as where we need to be better, what assistant coaches need from the head coach, how can I help them do their job better, where can I be better? And I think, when you strive to be better and you strive to gain knowledge, you're going to improve, and that's what I expect from our team.
Travis, over the last 6 weeks or so, you spent a lot of time talking about, the structure, responsibility, maybe being more responsible defensively. You also mentioned the offensive talent on this team. Mm-hmm. Did you think that, not just short-term, but for the long-term goals of this team, it was maybe even worth sacrificing a little bit on the offensive end, focus-wise, to make sure that guys were starting to do the things defensively you wanted to see?
Yeah, and I think, internally we've talked about that. I've talked to our group about the 200-foot game a lot, because I think it's an area that if you do not have, you cannot win. I also know that we have naturally offensive players on our team, and we didn't really touch on a lot of offense yet. I think there is ways that you can get ahead of the game in the NHL with offensive schemes that take a lot of practice time as well, and and that really starts in training camp. But the shortcomings of our group, I don't think, are offensive-minded. But I think it's also an area that we need to continue to work on. Like, we can't just you can't win in the league by just being a rush team. You just can't. It gets too hard in the playoffs. Teams work too hard. They're above. Their structure is tight in the playoffs. You have to be able to score in the offensive zone, and that's an area that we need to improve on. And I believe there are ways to improve your offensive scheme. Part of it is personnel. Do you have skilled enough players to make plays in the offensive zone? Are you willing to go to the net in the offensive zone? And people talk a lot about that with our group, that maybe they don't go to the net hard enough. It's not just that. You have to have players that can get shots to the net as well and get pucks through from the point. And I've challenged a lot of our players to improve their shot. It sounds simple, but at the NHL level, I believe there's a lot of room for improvement in shooting. And I see that on our team. I'd like to see a lot of our group come back with quicker releases, harder shots. There's something to be said for just getting a puck and wristing it through. And we, not having Dougie this year, he's one of the better ones in the league at it. But if you've got 2, 3, 4 defensemen that can get a puck to the net, with the quickness of our group and then adding willingness to get to the net from our group, now you're going to create more in the offense.
Travis, you mentioned a few minutes ago that you felt you were a different coach when you took over. What are some of the things that you may have picked up from or learned from Lindy and the staff before you took over midway through the season?
I think you're always learning. I think just being around Lindy made me a better coach. Watching how he coaches compared to how I coach, I study the game a lot. I study different systems a lot. I analyze, what works for some teams also doesn't work for every other team, and why does it work for this team? And that's where analytics can really help you in the off season. I have changed some of my ideas on D-zone coverage, for example. A little bit on forecheck. I think that's just evolving as a coach, and I think the game evolves. I think coaches have to evolve as well, and also being able to. There's a certain style you might want to play as a coach, but can your team do it? Are we built? Analytics is easy to go and look at the team, but they're all built a little bit different too. So I think confidence-wise as a coach, I'm a lot more confident in my coaching abilities, I guess, and I was always confident, but you just get better at what you do when you've done it a little longer. My passion is strong to coach. I love it, and I want to win badly, and that's what really drives me.
Just as a follow-up, assuming that you are still here next year, what are some of the changes that you want to personally make, either coach to coach or coach to players, that can help this team?
I think there's individual messages to players that I believe are individual, and they're between me and the player, and challenging players to be better. And I started to do that yesterday. If I am the coach, there'll be a lot of follow-up to our group. It's not just the individual, but it's the identity of our team and the mindset of our group coming back next year. I want that to be different. I want there to be a lot of purpose to our off season. I want there to be a lot of purpose to our play and purpose to our identity and being committed to it. You need to be a very committed athlete to be a very committed team, and that's an area that I want our players to be very strong in.
Travis, you talked about you want to see conditioned players.
Yeah.
You talked about how well they can be offensively. How much does this team have to get stronger? I mean, there are times where you don't seem strong enough.
Well, we're young too. Like you look at you look at some of the teams in the league, and I think what you're saying is there's men on the ice, and then sometimes there's some teams have what you'd call boys, I guess. And we have guys that are still maturing in their bodies that are maturing. I look at a kid like Merce. Like, man, he's a good player, but he's still growing. He's still maturing into a stronger man, and that you can't just rush that. That does take time, but then the onus goes on to every player individually to make sure that they are developing as quick as they can and having a strong understanding of where they need to develop. Because there's good NHL players, and then there's players that you win with. And sometimes there's a difference in the two. And we want players that you can win with. And I want to coach players that'll win you championships. And I think we've got a lot of them. And whoever coaches this team, hopefully it's myself, we're pushing those players to be players you can win with physically, but mentally as well. I think we showed immaturity at times, situational awareness. It might have cost us points that you get by just getting to overtime. And you see a lot of veteran teams will pick up a lot of overtime points. And part of that is understanding, hey, it's a tied game. We got 5 minutes left. Let's get it. And we're a great overtime team. And there's a long list of things that you do as a coach and you analyze and you look at. And we're just starting to do that now. And I'm a big believer in the off season being a time. Not only do players improve, especially young ones that we have, it's incredibly important that they improve over the summer, but also coaches, where they take the time to analyze the team's game, analyze what works around the league, and be fully prepared going into training camp so that your team gets out of the gate quick.
Travis, you're obviously an excellent communicator with the way you respond to our questions, and I'm sure the way you talk to your players as well. I'm wondering how vital, and you touched on it a little bit before, that has been to creating those relationships where you can hold players accountable and they understand why they're being accountable.
Yeah, well, you don't want excuses. I think the worst thing is for a coach to expect something out of a player, but he doesn't understand what's expected out of him. Mm-hmm. And there's different levels of accountability. There's accountability by talking and teaching, and maybe a player isn't old enough to really understand certain things. And there's, at the end of the day, how you keep players accountable changes. There's ice time. You diminish ice time. You sit out games, or you whisper into their ear and talk about certain scenarios. It's not always tough love either. And I think the best coaches have a feel for what players need. And the coaches bend to the players to make sure you get the best out of the players. They don't always make the players bend to the coach. And I think, there's give and take in both those areas. But the players having a strong understanding of what's expected is vital to having accountability. And that dialogue, that communication is, one of the ways of players knowing what's expected of them. There's video. There's numerous ways that you show players how to play the game, and I'm a big believer in that, or else it's hard to have accountability.
Last from me, yesterday we went through the locker room and talked to all the players, and they really spoke highly of the experience that they had working with you,
right.
Whether it was communication, just all those things. What does it mean to you as a coach stepping in with 20 games left, to know that you had such positive feedback from the guys that you coached?
It's nice to hear. I think, I'd like every coach is confident, and they think that they're the best coach in the world, and or one of them. And I think I'm a good coach, and I want the players to believe that they have a good coach. They've only seen me for 20 games. They have not seen me probably in full mode yet because we haven't got there. I'm a big believer in training camp and players being ready to go in training camp. That it's not just come and let's kind of work ourselves into it. I think training camp is a time of year that is vital to setting the standards, executing expectations, and the style of play that you want. And I think me being around the team for these 20 games, they have a feel for what I'm about now. But they're going to see a different side of me in training camp as well, and that's just coaching. And I also believe that it's given me a huge advantage prepping for next year, as well as getting ready for the upcoming season. I think whenever a coach can come in, even for a little bit at the end of the year, it really helps him to understand the team, and not even the on ice and the X's and O's, but just the individuals, the mindset of each player. It's easy to watch the game and say this guy needs to improve in this area, but knowing how the player ticks mentally is I think almost more important to getting a player to improve.
Yeah, Travis, extremely off topic, but since you played there, just curious your thoughts. I mean, do you have any thoughts on the Coyotes moving out of Arizona, out of the desert?
They've been there a long time. Anytime a team leaves, you feel for the fans, the people, I still know some of the trainers that work there, and they've been there a long time. So you feel bad for those people, but also the league has a job to do as well, and it just hasn't gone the way as planned, I guess. It is a good hockey market, and it's unfortunate that they've had to move the team.
Travis, earlier you mentioned analytics. Do you feel sometimes an overload of information could negatively impact the players? And if so, how do you help to find that balance?
Yeah, I don't think the players are involved with analytics as much as coaches. And I do believe if you involve analytics into the players and talk about it with them, it can overload them. I think the analytics are a byproduct of coaching, doing the right things, but also using analytics to pre-scout, off-season, studies of teams. There's so many ways you can use it, even practice, how you practice, the level of pace that you need to practice at. It's a great tool for coaches. I thoroughly believe in it. As far as the players go, they're not so in tune to analytics and the study of it yet.
Was coaching in the New York market everything you thought it would be?
Yeah, it's there's a lot of rivalries here, and I love that. I love the passion part of the game. I want a team that plays with a high level of passion and loves coming to the rink, loves winning. When you talk about New York loves winning. Like New Jersey, New York, all people around here. I also coach in the Canadian market already, so I'm used to the heat a little bit with the Canadian market, but I have enjoyed my time. All right.